Hey family, Joseph Baba Ifa here again, once again at Botanica Candles and More, coming to you with a new video about the Orisha Yemaya. We've come out with a couple videos about a couple different Orishas, and one that has consistently and persistently come about is definitely Yemaya. So we're going to go ahead and get started with her today. This video will also be available later at the Joseph Baba Ifa YouTube channel, which the link is going to be in the description of the video we're recording right now. So definitely be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share on the channel as well. And that way you'll always be up to date as to what videos are coming out here on Facebook as well as YouTube, right? Yemaya, definitely one of the most important Orishas in the diaspora as well as in the traditional practice, right? Yemaya has a little bit of a duality. Definitely. The first thing you're going to hear about Yemaya within the Creole practice is that she's an ocean deity, right? Well, this is where that duality kind of comes into place. The first thing we're going to go ahead and mention about her is technically she's a river deity, along with the other feminine Orishas and energies that occupy Nigeria. So where does the impression or the understanding of Yemaya as an ocean deity come from? Well, it really comes from her interaction as well as her relationship with the Orisha Olokun, right? The word Olokun means owner of the ocean, and technically Olokun is the ocean deity. But how did Yemaya in the New World really get this accolade, right? And it really comes from their relationship and their interaction and really the fondness they have for each other. And it kind of starts with Olokun, right? Olokun, when she was on Earth and kind of interacting with the other Orishas, unfortunately went through some negative situations, right? And one of them was the betrayal that she suffered between her and her spouse, Orisha Oko, right? When Orisha Oko kind of came to the conclusion and understanding that Olokun was a hermaphrodite, or, had, both qualities of man and woman, he wasn't very ethical with this knowledge, and he let everyone know this information. Unfortunately, Olokun afterwards cursed him, cursed the earth, and chose to go into solitude. Now, there is a specific path known as Yemaya Mayelewo that was friends with this deity of Olokun and saw that the pain she was going with and going through and their interaction, and kind of investigated what had occurred and really wanted to make sure that her friend wasn't going through this situation alone. So what they ended up doing was kind of coming up with a pact. Mayelewo accompanied her to the bottom of the ocean, or kind of the halfway point, and consoled her through her grief. And Olokun, based on Mayelewo's loyalty and friendship, told her, "You will be my emissary and my intermediary between this part of nature as well as Earth," right? So Mayelewo kind of became the deity that kind of performed those functions for her, because she chose never to reveal herself again, to never have to go through that chain. So that is why Yemaya, and one of her primordial aspects of Mayelewo, became associated with the ocean, and specifically the surface of the ocean. And that's why she's a little more connected with Olokun and is associated with the ocean now in the diaspora, being that the feminine deities are by nature river deities that feed into the ocean. But this is why Yemaya within the diaspora has this quality, right? So along with the ocean, there are a couple other things that Yemaya is associated with. Different numbers, different colors, and we're going to get into that now. She's definitely associated with the color blue, right? On first glance, when you hear that somebody is an ocean deity or whatnot, obviously the colors of the ocean are blue. But why specifically Yemaya, being a river deity that was associated with the ocean in the diaspora, was associated with this color, when technically, all of the female deities are associated with water and aren't associated necessarily with blue, right? There's a specific Odu within the Creole practice that speaks as to why Yemaya is associated with this color along with Olokun. And what was ultimately identified in this Odu is that the color blue actually represented the 7 sons of Yemaya, who represented the different shades of blue that were revealed in the spectrum of colors that actually happen when the light hits the water. So the 7 shades of blue represent the 7 sons of Yemaya that unfortunately passed away and were deified within water to live eternally, right? This also leads into a couple different associations that Yemaya is associated with. We have the color 7, and ironically, those 7 sons actually became the 7 seas of the ocean. So once again, this associates herself with her. The number 7, because of it being associated with the water energies as well as her children, actually associated her with the Odu in the Dilogun that's associated with the number 7, which is Odi, right? So it speaks of that as well. And when we're talking about Yemaya, the color blue, the children becoming the seas, and ultimately water becoming the most prominent element on earth, this also brings us to why Yemaya is referred to as the mother of the earth, because she is the mother of the element that most occupies the earth, right? At least the surface area, which belongs to her, right? So it really comes back in reference to her maternity, why Yemaya is associated with being the mother of Orisha, as well as, being the mother of the earth, because ultimately her children were the ones who allowed the population of earth to begin. When we're talking about Yemaya's maternity, there are various Odu that touch on when she would actually attend to the children of others, right? And a very specific occurrence of that was when she attended to the children of Shango and Oshun, which were the Ibeji, right? Being that, certain situations happened between both of them. And once again, this is very based on Odu, because there are other Odus where the Ibeji were orphaned and taken care of by other Orishas. But specifically in terms to Yemaya, she did attend to them and take care of them at one point when her parents were unable to due to their, various responsibilities. So when we're talking about a deity who ended up attending to the Ibeji, and we really figure out what the Ibeji symbolize, it symbolizes the propagation of the human race throughout the earth, right? The concept of Ibeji and twins, it speaks of fertility, prosperity, and once again, this spread of the human race across the earth. So Yemaya taking responsibility and ultimately raising them, once again, refers back to her aspect of maternity within Orisha practice and Orisha theology. And it's also a very big explanation why, if you look at certain Ibeji dolls, kind of like the ones that we have here on the table today, that we do have at Botanica Candles and More, occasionally you do see them dressed in blue. And there are even various Odu where it speaks of the Ibeji actually having been born from Yemaya and Shango. So the most important thing is, as we're learning all these different pataki, is understanding that each of these pataki are basically manifestations of the Odu in which they're found. And if we're talking about Odu, we're talking about different reincarnations. So in one incarnation, Yemaya was the Beji's aunt, and in another one, she was actually their mother. Neither are taking validity away from each other. It was just simply the task that they were meant to be born from, or born to, in that specific Odu. So touching on the different themes that, Yemaya has to do. So apart from the oceans, apart with her being, associated as the mother of the earth, her maternity, her relation to the number 7, her relationship to the divination oracle of the Dilogun, being that she has so much to do with that element in that space in nature, she's going to have a lot to do with anything that comes from that. So if we look at the Dilogun or the cowrie shells, it's heavily associated with Yemaya, because this is the area from which this instrument was basically, derived from. So when we're talking about the priests of Yemaya, we're talking about a priesthood that's very widespread, very specifically in Cuba as well as in Nigeria. Very popular Orisha, very much so crowned within both traditions, and they're associated with certain things. As such, the priests of Yemaya have the natural spiritual proficiency within the Dilogun oracle. Not to say that the children of Yemaya cannot be consecrated as Babalao, because it's very obvious that they can be. But if someone does choose to become someone to practice the Dilogun, they're going to have a natural disposition towards that. Another natural disposition they have towards is spirituality. As a rule of thumb, the children of Yemaya are very proficient spiritists. They tend to really excel in the cult of Egun, as well. And, you know, it's something that is very natural for them. And if we kind of analyze why, you look at, unfortunately, the amount of people who ultimately found their, you know, resting places within water and within the ocean, especially with the diaspora and all of our ancestors, the slaves who came over. They're going to have a natural disposition towards spirituality because of all the spirituality that kind of revolves itself within that point in nature. Her priesthood is associated with the color blue once again, and you're going to really recognize the children of Yemaya kind of by the ileke that I have on, or the ides that I have on. In Nigeria, you're going to see usually an all blue necklace, maybe with like a red or coral bead. Somewhere within that, within the diaspora, you're going to see very much a blue and clear combination. You might see some clear beads or some light blue beads, depending on the path of Yemaya that they're consecrated in. So you're going to see all these different variations once again, you know, reaffirming her association with the color blue, and water, and all of the things that have to do with that. So we talked about the Dilogun. We've talked about her relationship with the Ibeji, the color blue as well. And if we're talking about, once again, her duality, one of the best places to attend Yemaya is where the river meets the ocean, simply because she has so much to do with these both spaces in nature. It's a great place to really find where, you know, her river aspect really converts itself into the surface area of the ocean, right? So a great place to attend to her is the meeting points where basically the river dumps itself into the ocean. From a more Creole, Afro-Cuban aspect, a lot of people are going to recognize this area as where Oshun and Yemaya kind of meet as well. And that's perfectly legitimate. There's various Odu that speak of attending both of these Orisha at this point in nature. So once again, reaffirming that this spot is a great place to attend to Yemaya. But as well, the ocean, river, they kind of all conjoin. So whatever your basic geographic limitations allow you to do, you should do. And really, there are no limits when it comes to attending to this wonderful Orisha, right? Another aspect that really talks about the relationship between Yemaya and Olokun is that Olokun is a deity that is very heavily associated with wealth, right? Riches. When we're talking about the depths of the ocean, we're talking about, you know, countless minerals, resources, all of these things, and Olokun really has dominion over that. Due to the trust that Olokun had in Yemaya, by her basically standing by her and supporting her through that process with Orisha Ogo, she also entrusted Yemaya as one of the administrators of her wealth. And there's various Odu that speak about this as well, where Yemaya is the distributor of Olokun's wealth. And usually where we're able to accept or receive Olokun's wealth is through the surface of the ocean, or that top layer where the water is a little lighter, which is also representative of Yemaya, and that's how she's able to deposit it upon us. Also, she's represented in various avatars or manifestations, also at the very water's edge when we're entering the ocean. So she has a lot to do because of this with business, with commerce. The children of Yemaya are going to have a natural disposition to be able to, you know, interact on a business level. And Yemaya has a lot to do with prosperity because of it. So she has a lot to do with multiple things, whether it be maternity, whether it be prosperity. She's a very well-rounded Orisha that you can resolve a lot of situations with her, regardless of what it has to do with. So in Cuba, once again, she has a very large following. You know, she underwent the Santeria syncretization process where she was associated with a Catholic saint, and that Catholic saint is La Virgen de Regla, right? Very similar to Our Lady of Charity. She's dressed in blue, but she's of a darker skin tone. Yemaya, within Yoruba mythology, was seen as a woman with very dark, brilliant skin. So it was very easy for our ancestors to be able to look at this Catholic saint and be like, you know, that's the one we're going to associate her with. Ironically, and some of these things with the syncretism happen divinely, that saint's holiday or feast day is on September 7th. Yemaya's natural native number is 7, or her power number is 7. So divine act there where things kind of lined up. So it was very easy for our ancestors to be like, we're going to venerate her. And a lot of people, even though they're delving more into the traditional aspect of things, still have La Virgen de Regla on their Yemaya shrine. They still attend to her this way. They still celebrate Yemaya even on September 7th. So once again, a little bit more information on that. We touched on the fact that the children of Yemaya are very good spiritists. Within Nigeria, well, within Cuba, first and foremost, she is associated with the town of Regla, which is near the bay. Ironically, once again, there are Odu that speak of, Yemaya having to do with the bay and where commerce kind of comes into any city. And ironically, that same saint, La Virgen de Regla, her shrine is located in the Bay of Havana, right? So really just a lot of divine providence when it came to the similarities between things and how everything was associated. So she's very associated with that part of Havana. Within Nigeria, she's associated with the region of Abeokuta. Even though her priesthood, once again, can be seen throughout Yoruba land, it's very centralized here, and you see a large, quantity of Yemaya priests as well. Yemaya is pronounced Yemaya within the Olokun tradition. Within the very rustic Yoruba way of pronouncing it, it's Yemoja. Or if we break it down even more, Yeye Omoeja, which means mother whose children are the fish, right? Once again, associating her with the ocean, with water. Once again, being that human beings in various ways of interpretation as far as scientific fact and, historical allegory, we are seen as having developed from fish or, having gone through a fish, aquatic, marine state, later to an amphibious state, and ultimately reaching land. So once again, touching on her maternity, right? On a personal note, as far as, interaction with this Orisha, within the Cuban tradition, you receive her up front. Maya Olorisha or Maya Olorisha actually had Yemaya crowned. Just kind of touching on the personal experiences I've had with them. I've been surrounded, and I have various godchildren who are children of Yemaya, and been around various people who have Yemaya crowned. Further kind of just touching on the different traits that they might have within the Afro-Cuban tradition. Like most Afro-Cuban Orishas, she has different manifestations and paths. One of the most popular ones is going to be Ogunte. You might also know her by Okute. There's different ways of pronouncing it, but the Ogunte path is very heavily associated with Ogun, very associated with Ogun's implements, where you may see the Ashaba chain, which actually has Ogun's tools on it, that is placed on Yemaya, depending if she has this specific manifestation. She's also associated with the machete. She's also seen as a warrior goddess in that aspect, so that's one of the very popular manifestations within the Afro-Cuban tradition. And her ileke is usually associated with a red bead, once again intertwined within the clear beads, such as the one I'm wearing. Really interesting point of contact between us and our ancestors in Nigeria is that their Yemaya ileke also has a red bead or a coral bead in it as well. Once again, showing where our traditions come from and further reaffirming them in the Afro-Cuban tradition, right? Another path that is of Yemayas is Asesu. This one is associated with the light blue beads that you may see from time to time. So also, interrelating with the clear ones and also the coral bead or the red bead, depending on your Orisha Ile or your religious house. She's associated with the duck. And had, various interactions with that animal. It's also a power animal for Yemaya, so you may see certain people on their shrines have this animal or a figurine of it nearby. This is why. And she's also associated with the foam that actually generates itself at the very edge of where the ocean meets with the sand. So this is a natural occurrence in nature of Yemaya, right? We also have another path known as Ashaba, and another common one is Saramawa. So you're going to hear, when it comes to Yemaya, she is one of the Orishas within our initiation ceremony that we do identify. I'm under the personal belief that all the Orishas have different names and different incarnations, but at least within the Afro-Cuban practice, Yemaya is definitely one of the ones where you're going to have a path revealed. And ultimately, when we're talking about the paths of the Orishas, we're talking about previous incarnations that we may have had as them or interacted with them as. So it's actually really key in understanding ourselves. As we learn about that manifestation, we're learning more about ourselves, right? Yemaya, within the Ifa corpus, has interacted with pretty much every Orisha. She's pretty much in every Odu, just due to her priesthood and the amount of reincarnations that people have gone through being priests of Yemaya and children of Yemaya. She's very heavily associated with her sister Oshun. They're known together as, the two waters, at least within the Afro-Cuban tradition. Oshun representing the sweet waters of the river, and Yemaya representing the salty waters of the ocean, right? And, kind of the differences they have in personality and the way they interacted. But from an Afro-Cuban tradition, Oshun is seen as the administrator of Yemaya's wealth, being that Yemaya is associated more heavily with the ocean in the Afro-Cuban tradition than, the traditional practice of Ifa. And all in all, they have a very good relationship. I haven't personally encountered an Odu where they personally have had any conflict. I have seen Odu where their children may have, but it's usually a misunderstanding on that level. But all in all, as you go through Odu, these two deities had very good relations. And, like I said, Yemaya at one point even tended to her children to be able to help Ochun get through a very difficult process that she went through and to support her from a maternal aspect. So that pretty much talks about their interaction and just, how closely related they are. Where someone who gets initiated in Yemaya, it's very possible in Ita, they're going to have a lot of debts with Oshun because it's usually a deity that provides a lot of protection and progress for the priests of Yemaya, right? Yemaya and Chango also had a lot of interactions. They're heavily associated with the Ibeji deities, where there's an Odu that speaks of them actually birthing the Ibeji and helping them grow and go through the process of birth. But Yemaya and Chango are very, very closely related, right? And there's actually a pataki that explains this, where, both of them were going through difficult times from an economic standpoint and a stability standpoint, right? And what ended up happening is unfortunately, Chango in this incarnation, he was somewhat of a thief, right? So he was going hungry, and he said, I got to find a way to eat. And Olofin had basically a crop of corn that was growing, right? And Shango was scared to actually delve into it on his own because he didn't want to get caught, so he needed an accomplice. Ironically, Yemaya was walking by, and he kind of told the plot to Yemaya on how they were going to be able to sustain themselves, being that she was going through the same thing. So Chango put Yemaya on his back, piggyback style, and walked into Olofin's farm. And, Yemaya, now with this new height being on Chango's back, started picking corn. And they basically were able to harvest enough to leave and sustain themselves for a while. One of the gentlemen who was actually attending to Olofin's crop noticed footsteps, noticed that corn was missing, and for some reason or another, Olofin always noticed Chango looking at his crops, and that was the first suspect. So he called both of them in because he noticed that they were hanging around each other a lot, but he had no evidence to really support this. So when basically they both came into trial, Olofin started interrogating Yemaya and said, "Hey, did you steal my corn?" And Yemaya said, "My feet never entered your farm." And this was the truth because her feet were suspended in the air on Chango's back. And then he interrogated Chango and said, "Did you steal my corn?" And Chango said, "My hands never touched your corn inside of your farm." And Olofin knew this was the truth, so he kind of looked at both of them. He was very angry, but he couldn't try them on any of the charges because they did not lie. And because of this, at least within the Afro-Cuban tradition, you're going to see that strong affiliation between both of them and why they eat a lot of, the same animals, right? And one of those animals being the ram, right? And that kind of segues us into the next interaction between other Orishas that Yemaya had. And this is a bit of a polemic one, controversial one, because these two deities, when we talk about them in the same sentence, we usually can't finish it because it's heated, right? But we're going to talk about the interaction between Yemaya and not Yemaya and Oya, right? At first glance, a lot of the elder priests, a lot of the people who are really involved in the Afro-Cuban tradition are going to be like, man, that's a difficult one because, as such, we've come to the conclusion that these people really don't get along, right? We've had a couple stories, a couple conversations about it, And we're just going to delve into that. So just for the people who are joining in now, possibly, this is our new video on Yemaya, and we're going to be delving into the relationship between Yemaya and Oya. And once again, please be sure to subscribe to Joseph Baba Ifa YouTube channel, right? So what ended up happening is there's this story that's pretty modern where, you know, Yemaya was the owner of the cemetery and Oya was the owner of the ocean, right? And, you know, Yemaya was miserable. She really didn't like her place in nature. You know, it was very, you know, opposite of her personality. She was very lively. She liked to have a good time. She liked to be with the living. She enjoyed the ocean. She wanted to kind of switch. And Oya had the habit of visiting her sister Yemaya from time to time. Or they would kind of, you know, find each other on, you know, common ground and then talk about their lives. And, you know, Yemaya, knowing that Oya had the space and nature that she really wanted, would make it seem to Oya that she was happy with being the owner of the cemetery. To the point where Oya was like, hey, I'd like to go to the cemetery and see what all, you know, the fuss is about how great your kingdom is. And, you know, on the way there, Yemaya just kept going on and on about how great it was, how vast it was, how many subjects she had, how, you know, incredible it was, and how many people would visit her. And Oya, becoming so, you know, excited about what she was hearing, she said, man, I really hate the ocean then, because, you know, it's vast, but I really can't communicate with nobody. It's a bunch of fish, you know, all of these things. And, you know, I wish I had a place like yours, which is the cemetery. And Yemaya was like, you know what, just to help you out, you know, I'd be willing to switch with you just so you could be happy. I'd be willing to sacrifice my happiness for yours. And Oya was so appreciative of it that even before visiting the cemetery, she basically convened a meeting between Yemaya, her, and Olokun, and told Olokun that Yemaya was willing to switch spaces in nature with her. And, you know, Olokun kind of looked at Yemaya and looked at Oya, and he was like, I'm not getting involved in this. And he sanctioned it. And he said, you know, what's done is done. I'm not revisiting this whatsoever. And basically, you know, when Oya went to the cemetery, she had realized that she had been tricked and that the cemetery was horrible, to the point where she chose to kind of maintain herself towards the gate, where, you know, even till modern day, Oya is heavily associated with the gates of the cemetery. And the reason for that is because she doesn't like to actually be in her kingdom, right? And ultimately, Yemaya got what she wanted, and she got to live by the ocean for the rest of her life. So this is one of the stories that, you know, supposedly kind of explains the antagonism between both of them, right? There are other Odu and other Pataki that kind of touch on this. And it kind of explains what the base root of the problem between these two women was. There was a moment when, you know, Oya was married to Chango. But, you know, Oya would notice that Chango had the tendency of, you know, seeing other women and being around other women. He had multiple wives. And one of these women was Yemaya, right? And Oya basically wanted to create a plot to be able to assassinate Yemaya and kind of remove her from the picture, unfortunately. So she set a trap with a hole basically in front of her own door, because she knew that Yemaya would go visit Chango when Oya wasn't in the house, right? And the trap worked, right? And Yemaya fell in the hole and she died. But when she got to heaven, you know, Olokun kind of looked at her and said, what are you doing here? And Yemaya was like, I'm really not sure. You know, I went to go visit Chango. You know, every now and again we do our thing. And I fell in a hole and I died. And when Olokun kind of revisited the theme and kind of looked at what had occurred, he saw that Oya had basically set a trap to hurt Yemaya. Now, Olokun kind of looked at the situation and he said, you know, I'd rather you and Chango not have these interactions, but I really can't get involved because you guys have your own thing going on down there. So I'm going to resurrect you because I feel like what's occurred here hasn't been right, or it wasn't just, right? There wasn't a conversation had, anything like that. Oya took your life into her own hands. So Olokun resurrected her, right? So Oya's going home now because she's hearing that, you know, Yemaya had passed away, or she had come to the conclusion that, you know, she was going to find, you know, Yemaya in the hole. So when she goes to look in the hole, she sees that there's been some ruckus or some movement there, but she doesn't see a body. She sees blood, she sees all these things, but she doesn't see a body. So she's like, okay, someone did the favor of taking the body away from me. So when she actually entered into the house, she saw three things. She saw Chango, she saw Yemaya, and she saw them eating a plate of ram together, basically. And she was shocked. And Yemaya was kind of looking at her. Shango was freaked out. He's like, oh man, I've been caught. Yemaya looked very unsurprised, and Oya kind of walked in and was like, wow, what happened here? And basically Yemaya told Oya, Olofin saw fit to resurrect me. And Oya was very disheartened and felt very betrayed, because ultimately she was the victim of the infidelity, and said, from this day forward, I'll never interact with Shango, I'll never interact with Yemaya, and most importantly, which was the base theme here, was the interaction with the ram. The ram at one point was Oya's best friend, and she felt very betrayed that the ram was present during the infidelity that was occurring between Shango and Yemaya, right? So that kind of leads into the next story, where basically once Oya abandoned the consumption of the ram, she was left without a means of sustenance because she was so betrayed. So she went into a deep depression, unfortunately, and was kind of going through her process to the point where she almost starved to death, and then she actually interacted with Obadala. And ironically, at the same time, Obadala was pretty frustrated because people kept offering him black she-goats, right, when he preferred the white she-goats. So when Oya was going through her situation, she ran into her father, and he noticed that he was frustrated, and they had the conversation where Obadala expressed his discomfort with this animal to Oya, right? And Oya, being prideful to the end, said, I'm not going to say anything, but, basically, Baba, if you don't want the black she-goat anymore, I'll take her, and I'll survive, and I'll take that off your hands so you don't have to go through the headache of getting rid of it. And Obadala, not realizing the situation that Oya was going through, was like, hey, you can take it from me, and I'll just stick with the white one, and this is where, Oya's predilect food became the black she-goat, because it was the sustenance that helped her survive hunger. And it also explains the strong link between Oya and Obadala, throughout our religious process. So a lot of people say, because of these things, Yemaya and Oya, the children, this, that, and the third. I'm not trying to delve too much into, the specifics of this, but Odu and Ifa says that the central issue between all of them is the ram. The fact that Yemaya and Shango consume ram together, and it's one of their preferred foods, and the fact that Oya will not witness this consumption or this sacrifice is really where this separation happens. Because if we're talking about divine beef or divine conflict, Shango and Ogun have had, Patagi that explain their separation, right? And ultimately, that washed over and that was squashed. Or, Obadala and Agayu had their situation and it was squashed. At the end of the day, the interpretation belongs to the religious elder of the home, but Odu says that the central issue between all of these deities is the ram. And this is the reason why Oya and Yemaya don't necessarily interact within the Afro-Cuban tradition on face value. So I'll leave that at that, but that kind of touches on their relationship and how Yemaya was able to interact there. But Yemaya got what she wanted, so we'll leave that there. Yemaya and Ogun. I mean, we talked about the Ogunte path. We talked about Yemaya and Ogun and their interaction, and they were married at one point. It was a very, very prosperous relationship for Ogun being with Yemaya. Yemaya accepted him for who he was. He was a hardworking man. He was a king. He was a warrior. And Yemaya was good with all of that. The one thing that Yemaya always asked Ogun for was love, right? Unfortunately, Ogun's nature made it very difficult for him to be able to interact on a romantic level with his wife because he was a very rough personality, at least in the incarnation I'm speaking about. And Ogun allowed the prosperity that came with being with Yemaya, being that Yemaya was a businesswoman, par excellence, to kind of replace his attention towards Yemaya and focus more on business, right? And Yemaya felt very betrayed because she said, I've been able to help you achieve all this prosperity, and you've lost sight of what it's really meant for. It's meant for us to be able to spend time together and love each other, and Ogun kind of lost sight of this. And it ultimately led to their divorce, right? Even though Yemaya and Ogun did love each other, or Yemaya never necessarily forgave Ogun for focusing more on money and war and all these things rather than her. So it kind of touches on that manifestation, and that's closely associated with the Ogunte path, right? Being that they were married and they would go to war together, and they basically stood up for each other, and unfortunately they did separate in various pataki. Yemaya had, interactions with various Orisha. The pataki that has to do with Olokun and Orisha Oko that I mentioned at the beginning, some people put Yemaya in that position of the pataki, and it kind of explains the war between, water and earth. It didn't necessarily end well in that aspect either, being that, till this day, the surface of the ocean still goes to war with the earth, being that every now and again there's a tsunami, and all of them kind of, reveal themselves on the surface. So in that sense, you could, interchange them in that specific pataki. Yemaya also was in a relationship with Inle, or, Inle, because Abada is Inle's wife. It was specifically with Inle. And Inle was actually able, at least within Afro-Cuban pataki, able to see Yemaya's secrets, right? And because of this, even till this day, within the Afro-Cuban tradition, Yemaya speaks for Inle, and has a lot to do with the crowning ceremonies of the children of Inle, to the point where, we do crown Yemaya to the children of Inle with oro, right? So it speaks about their interaction, Yemaya being very zealous of what she had and her secrets, and apart from that, the love she had for Inle, being that he was a very attractive man, it caused them to have a very, nasty breakup, right? So it speaks about their interaction as well. They did have it. A couple of the animals that are associated with Yemaya, the duck specifically, there's Odu that speak of the interaction between Yemaya and the duck. Some of them are positive, some of them are not. Depending on the manifestation or the camino of Yemaya you have, your Yemaya eats duck or not. It really depends on the house and how you want to proceed with that. The swan as well is associated. There's other pataki that speak of that interaction as well. It's a power animal for Yemaya. And it also speaks of a dog, or the dog is also associated with Yemaya. Not necessarily in the positive context. The dog actually became the enemy of Yemaya due to her separation with Ogun, as well as situations that she had where the dog attacked her. That's why, a lot of the children of Yemaya really would rather, prefer to stay away from dogs, being that, their Orisha Labatori had negative interactions with that animal on earth. So, some really nice adimus, or ones that are really preferable to Yemaya. The first one we have to talk about is really Oyin Ireke, which is melao, or molasses. Definitely preferred by her. Very sweet, very resemblant to her, and this is pretty much, baseline when it comes to Yemaya worship. Another animal that's really, associated with her is the cockroach, where you see a lot of children of Yemaya prefer to, leave cockroaches sacred and not, hurt them in any form or fashion. So, it's another animal that's associated with her in various Odu. Yemaya as such, very important Orisha, very beautiful Orisha. A lot of personal experiences with her, a lot of great friends who have her crowned. We definitely wanted to come out with this video to just give, a nice bit of information on her. I really think that, the things we touched on are going to definitely spur some further conversations, and we're definitely open to dialect here at Joseph Babaifa, as well as Botanica Candles and more. My godson Chris is recording once again. Hey, how did anybody say hi or have any questions?
Indeed.
Oh, man.
Marcia Cristina, good evening. Ache, Happy New Year's, Joseph.
Happy New Year's to you.
Ogune.
Thank you so much. Blessings.
Diana Ortiz, Iboribo y Bocheche, Padrino.
Blessings, mi hijada.
Luis Collazo, bendición, Padrino. Feliz Año Nuevo.
Bendiciones, mi hijado Luis. Te estamos esperando, people. Bendiciones.
Ogbeyono y Fodara, Iboribo y Bocheche, Abure.
Oluo, Iboruboya. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for all your support in these recent times. You're a wonderful man. Thank you.
Damián Alejandro Padro, Ogbe Ato.
Obuado. Long life and prosperity. Oluo, thank you. It was nice spending some time with you earlier today.
John Michael Rodriguez. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
When you were
Uruguaya, John, thank you so much for your comment.
Questions.
If anyone has any questions, please feel free to chime in. We're definitely open to converse this evening. Just to touch on a couple of things we might have at any given time at Botanica Candles and More for Yemaya. We have some beautiful ajere or soperas, beautiful ibeji dolls or dolls you may want to have next to Yemaya, colognes, perfumes, oils, statues, candles, to be able to attend this beautiful Orisha. Definitely.
Mili Pagán, bendición, padrino, los quiero mucho.
Bendiciones, Mili, te quiero, un besote, mi hijada. Gracias por ver. We're good? Guys, once again, this video will be available on the YouTube channel for Joseph Baba Ifa. Please remember, beginning of the year readings are still occurring. Please get this year off to a good start. Find out what Orumila has in store for you this year and make sure we get it off to a good start by doing the various things we need to. Sincerely from Joseph Baba Ifa. Here at Botanica Candles and More, you can contact us at 407-440-2086. Bunch of great things going on this year. I want to also thank everyone for all the support they showed me with my grandmother. You know, Aurora, we love you deeply, and we thank you for all that you did for us. May Shango bless you always, Abuela. And sincerely, guys, Happy New Year, and thank you so much for watching us again. New videos coming soon. We're going to be going live very frequently, guys. Have a blessed day. Buruboya.